who made the best pick and who made the worst pick of the first round this 2022 NFL Draft. What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with my round one grades of this 2022 NFL Draft. I'm going to grade and evaluate and give you my thoughts and opinions on each of these picks from number 1 to number 32. These evaluations and grades include my thoughts on the trades, include my thoughts on the prospect, include my thoughts on the supposed value, and also how they fit the team, the need, and the scheme. So before I give you my thoughts on every pick, make sure that you do spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL post-draft coverage and NFL videos every day. Let's get to my draft grades, beginning with the top of the top. My draft grade for the first overall pick in this 2022 NFL Draft, Trayvon Walker to the Jags. I give it a B. I liked edge rushers more than Trayvon Walker, including Aiden Hutchinson, who went second overall. I don't see a huge difference between Hutchinson and Walker in terms of scheme additions here. I think Trayvon Walker, don't get me wrong, offers more versatility. He's a more diverse player where he could play basically any position for you in any scheme, from inside to outside linebacker in terms of outside edge, 3-4 D-end, 4-3 hand in the dirt style D-end, and outside linebacker in a 3-4 style defense. So he could do all those things. And he's valuable because of that. He's also a great prospect because of his upside, his potential. He has incredible length, incredible speed, insane strength. He is a unique player. I mean, you don't see players like that who can move and space the way he does and are as strong as he is. But I question his pass rushing ability. Aiden Hutchinson to me is the better pass rusher. He is right now, and I think he always will be. So that's why I give it a B. On top of that, I would have picked a tackle here. I would have picked Aquanu, or I would have picked Neal to protect Trevor Lawrence, my number one asset. So personally, well, I like the player. I don't love the player. And I also feel like tackle would have been the better way to go here, just in my opinion. So I give it a B. The number 2 pick is Aiden Hutchinson, and I think this is a home run for the Lions. Not only did they get my favorite pass rusher in the draft, the most pro-ready pass rusher in the draft, who is going to contribute right away to this football team, but they get a player at their biggest position of need that can make the biggest difference on their football team. There was no question here that they were going to go edge rusher. There was no question whatsoever. They go with Aiden Hutchinson, a guy that's going to impact their pass rush, but also impact their culture and their locker room. He's a leader. He's a Michigan man. And what I love about Aiden Hutchinson is how he thinks the game. He sets up tackles with a pass rush plan. He uses his hands extraordinarily. And Aiden Hutchinson is still an explosive athlete. Although he's not as impressive as Trayvon Walker, he is an explosive edge rusher. There are flaws in his game. There are worries about arm length and things of that nature. But Hutchinson, I think, is a home run for the Lions, both on and off the field. The number 3 pick is Derek Stingley Jr. I give it a B-. Derek Stingley Jr. is just too risky for me. For a team with the Texans that need to hit home runs. They need to get these picks right. They need to pick good players and be confident about those picks. And they probably are confident about this pick. If Derek Stingley hits, he could be amazing. He could be a great player. But the problem I have here is the Texans are bad. I'm talking really bad. And to pick a player that has played 10 games the last 2 years, 3rd overall, is just too risky for me. So as an outside general manager, I say this is just too risky for 3rd overall. If you wanted to pick him later, you had 2 picks in the top 15, you could have picked him a little bit later and gotten possibly a more for sure prospect here. So I see a lot of upside with Stingley. as a shutdown corner, but I also see a lot of downside potentially. So that's why the B- is there. The number 4 pick is Sauce Gardner. Great pick. Does not carry the risk Stingley does. I actually think he's better than Stingley, and this is the difference here. While the Texans with Lovie Smith are primarily going to be a cover 2 zone team who typically don't value corners that much, Sauce Gardner goes to a Seattle scheme, Robert Saleh defense, who made Richard Sherman famous, and Richard Sherman was famous in that scheme. Why? Not only because of his mouth, which Sauce also has. I see a lot of similarities between the players, but also the length that each guy has, the ability to play press coverage, the ability to play smart, see the football, read the football, and make plays. Sauce can play man-to-man press and shut down guys. Sauce can read and react in zone. Sauce is a leader. Sauce is a personality that's going to get the best out of his defense. I think he's going to make everybody in that organization better because of the attitude he brings. I love the alpha mentality of Sauce Gardner. So that's why I give it an A. I think it's a great scheme fit. I would have made this pick. So it's my grades. I give it an A. Number 5 is Kayvon Thibodeaux. I'm not the biggest Thibodeaux fan. I think that with him, a lot of people are going to say this is an A+ because they saw him as the first overall pick, a month ago or whatever, or 2 months ago. But I think the NFL had very different evaluation of him. I think some teams loved him, some teams didn't. And I think him going as the second or third edge rusher was a lot more reasonable here, and him dropping to 5 made a lot of sense to me, given his off-the-field potential concerns, not problems, but concerns maybe with his personality, which is very big, as you can tell, but also, besides that, just his tape, I didn't think was as impressive as some of the other prospects, and even ones that went after him. So I think he's just been a little bit overrated throughout the process, but I will say this about him. He has the ability to unlock as a pass rusher. He has a lot of upside. He has a lot of athleticism. But what I do worry about him is his pure ability as a pass rusher to win one-on-one with bend. He's not very bendy as a pass rusher, which means he gets around that corner, he turns the corner. And that's a big trait of a lot of elite pass rushers. Kayvon reminds me more of a Jadeveon Clowney. He's a little bit more stiff. He's going to use power. You can move him inside. You can put him in blitzes and stunts, and he'll make an impact. But he doesn't play with the edge of Jadeveon Clowney either. And I do feel like he is a good scheme fit for Don Martindale, but not a pure impact pass rusher that I think a lot of people think the Giants are getting here. So he's a really good player, but I don't know if he is necessarily going to be the great player that a lot of Giants fans may expect with this pick. I was a little bit confused as well why they didn't pick their choice of tackle here, as you knew that the Carolina was going to pick their tackle. Now, maybe they just liked Evan Neal more than Ekwonu and felt like Carolina was going to pick Ekwonu anyways, so they didn't really have a big deal about it. So they just picked Kayvon just in case to be safe. But that was a little bit confusing just draft strategy-wise. But then you look at Carolina at pick number 6, and I think this is a great pick. One of the best picks that nobody's talking about in this draft. You get arguably the guy that could have went first overall. You get the guy that I thought should have went third overall, 6th. You get your favorite tackle at 6. This is a very good tackle class. 3 tackles in the top 10 that are very good players with a lot of upside. Ekwonu has like Trent Williams type upside. He's that physical, that aggressive, and that much of a beast in the run game. He's got good traits and good feet and everything you need. The length to be successful as a pass blocker. Now, he's going to need more refinement in that category, but as a run blocker, he's a machine, a monster, a beast, whatever you want to call him. And for them to just get their favorite tackle when we knew they wanted a tackle from day 1 at pick 6, I just think it's an absolute A+. Pick 7 is Evan Neal. I also think this is an A+ because this was my top guy in the draft. And when you get my top guy in the draft at number 7, you're going to get an A+ from Mitch Milani. That's just the way it's going to go here on the BLV. I'm going to tell you how it is. Evan Neal is a brick wall. He's a great pass blocker. He can play left tackle, right tackle. He even played guard. I think he's going to make an ideal right tackle. He protected Mac Jones for a national championship at right tackle and played very, very well. He's a massive human being. I think he's got good deceptive feet for his size. He's the most ready of all these tackles, and he's just spotless off the field. So that's a great pick for Brian Daboll. His Alabama connection comes through. Pick number 8 is Drake London for the Falcons. I give it a B+. Why? I liked other receivers a little bit more. Jameson Williams to be exact. But I really like Drake London. And this was a big need for the Falcons. They needed a difference-making wide receiver. And in a lot of ways, I get it, right? Jameson Williams, he's coming off the injury. He might take a little bit of time. On top of that, you don't know what he's going to be after ACL necessarily. You know, there is sort of some risk there, although I think it's very, 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 very minimal. But Drake London is a different type of animal. He's a different type of receiver. If you wanted a big receiver with contested catch skills who's also good after the catch, Drake London is your guy. He's also very similar to Kyle Pitts in terms of frame and size, which makes this team very tough to guard, especially in the red zone with Pitts and London and how many different mismatches they can offer you. So from that perspective, I think it's a very, very, very interesting pick. I give it a B+. Then we move on to number 9, Charles Cross. That's an A to me. Seattle was rather going to go with an edge rusher or a tackle. Tackle is probably the bigger priority here. And they get the third best tackle in the draft, Charles Cross, who's arguably the best pass blocker in the class. They finally try to fix that problem after Russell Wilson leaves, which is funny. But Charles Cross is a really good football player. He needs to develop as a run blocker, but in terms of pass blocking, he has all the tools, and he's just already really, really good at mirroring opposing pass rushers. So Charles Cross is a great pick from the Seahawks, and great value, great fit, all of it. Garrett Wilson is an A- for me to the Jets. Again, I think Jameson Williams is the best receiver in this class. I would have picked him, but Garrett Wilson is very well-rounded. You could not go wrong with picking Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to be a good football player. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be a great wide receiver, but Wilson to Wilson just sounds right, and that's why I think I give it maybe a little extra boost. But Garrett Wilson can play on the inside, he can play on the outside, he's good everywhere. I think he has the upside to be the most upside in his game, I think, is with his route running capabilities. He's pretty explosive, but not super explosive. He's got really good hands, fairly solid contested catch ability, and he just knows how to beat you deep. So Garrett Wilson is a good pick and a number 1 receiver for Zach Wilson. Chris Olave, B-. I just think this was too much for Chris Olave here. In terms of trading up for him, you had to give up extra to do so. I'm not exactly the biggest fan of his game. I think he's more going to be a slot receiver and maybe a little bit of a deep threat, but I don't see him as much of a physical outside receiver. I think he's going to struggle in the NFL to get off the line of scrimmage at times. I like his route running capabilities. I think he's a nice fit with the Saints, but I don't love him as a prospect. So that's where my bias comes in terms of my evaluation for this pick. On top of them having to trade up to get him, I would have preferred maybe even trading down and getting somebody like Jahan Dotson. This is exactly what Washington did. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Jameson Williams, an A. He's the best receiver in the class. He's the most explosive, difference-making player in this class. He is a game-changing receiver. He's an excellent route runner. He's got 4.2 speed. He's just a really, really good player. And, I mean, he dominated Georgia. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but Georgia couldn't cover him. Georgia had 5 first-round defensive players in this draft, guys. 5. That's how good Jameson Williams is. He's a number 1 receiver. They needed a receiver really badly. They got my top pass rusher and my top receiver. Nothing else has to be said. Jordan Davis to the Eagles, absolute brick wall of a run defender. He changes the game. He changes the math. This is why I love Jordan Davis. People will question his pass rushing ability. I question your ability to evaluate. Okay, Jordan Davis, I think, is going to be able to push pockets in the NFL similar to a Vita Vea. He's an absolute beast. He's going to be a 3-down player at some point. There's no question about it. Maybe even year 1. He's going to develop underneath Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox is going to, tricks to the trade, all that stuff. It's going to be phenomenal. But Jordan Davis changes the math. That's why he's valuable. Because he's so good versus the run. He eats up 2 people, and he can stuff the run at the line of scrimmage. When you change the math, you change the passing game. Because teams can't run on you when Jordan Davis is in the middle. It's just really hard to do. Plus, you open up space for other guys like Hassan Reddick and like people like Javon Hargrave. So his presence alone changes math, changes the game up front. And Jordan Davis is that darn good, in my opinion. Kyle Hamilton is an A+. Why? Because Kyle Hamilton is the best safety by far in this class. He's a very good athlete, 6'4", good speed on tape, not on the 40. Really, really instinctual, really smart, sees things really well, and he's going to be really good for the Ravens. It's a classic Raven here, but Kyle Hamilton, big, smooth playmaker, and I think he could play in the box as an extra linebacker on third down. In sub packages, I think he could play in the nickel at times. I think he could play strong or free safety. It's just another chess piece for the Ravens to work with. A+ for me to get him at that spot. A lot of people thought he was a top 5 prospect. Kenyon Green, the guard to the Texans, just a solid B. They needed a guard. I don't blame them here for their second pick in the first round. Now, this is more of a safe pick, in my opinion. It's kind of weird that they went with the home run pick at number 3 and the safe pick here in the mid picks, but they needed a guard. He's got versatility to play tackle or guard, and he's really good in the run game, really good athlete. I think he's got a lot of upside, and personally, he was my favorite guard in the draft, so I like that pick. Jahan Dotson, B. I think this was a bit of a reach here, but I really like Jahan Dotson. I like Jahan Dotson more than I like Chris Olave. I think they're similar players. I think they run good routes on all 3 levels. I think they can explode on all 3 levels with speed. But I think Jahan Dotson played with a worse quarterback and a worse offense as the number 1 target and is way tougher. What I appreciate about Jahan Dotson is he's got a little bit of a Chris Godwin side to him. He's physical, he's tough, he can take a hit over the middle, and he's good after the catch. So to me, Jahan Dotson's a complete receiver. He might not be a true number 1, but he's a really capable number 2. Just a football player and a receiver that I really like. I really like that style of player. So Jahan Dotson, I think it's a bit of a reach. That's why I give it a B. But to be able to trade back, not get Chris Olave, but get a guy that's similar, if not better, in Jahan Dotson, I think is very wise there by Washington. Next, you got Zion Johnson to the Chargers. I give it a B. It's, again, just like Kenyon Green, solid guard pick here. But again, guard isn't a super valuable position in the NFL, so I can't give it like an A or anything. But it fits a need. It fits a position, rather right tackle or right guard, because he could play both. He's played both at Boston College. Good, capable player that's had a lot of experience and is going to help a win-now team right away. So absolutely cannot blame this pick. It fits the need. It makes a lot of sense. Chargers, once again, just continue to hit really solid picks in round 1. Treylon Burks, B+ to the Titans. A.J. Brown, they trade. I think that's kind of head-scratching a little bit, but I kind of understand it because of the contract that was given out, on top of the fact that A.J. Brown was going to get paid, and I don't know if the Titans were willing to do that. So what do? Well, they get a pick to pick Treylon Burks, who is A.J. Brown Jr. in the opinion of a lot of people. I even saw it myself on tape. He's got a big, thick lower half, a big, juicy pair of legs and ass on him. And that's a lot like A.J. Brown. He can break tackles. He can make plays after catch. He's got big mitts and hands to snag contested catches. I do question his route running and his separation in terms of running proper routes, but I think that you can utilize him in a lot of different ways, inside, outside, in the backfield, reverses. So he's a really tricky player, but also a really impactful player. He ran away from the Alabama defense. He's explosive. I like him. Trevor Penning. I give it a B. Again, just a solid pick. Very expected here from the Saints to go tackle. They replace Teron Armstead. So in a lot of ways, you could maybe give this an A if you love the prospect. But personally, I think this might have been a little bit early for Trevor Penning, in my opinion. But, they get the guy that they wanted. They get the tackle that they wanted. They got the position that they wanted. So who am I to judge? But I feel like the Saints get a solid tackle here. I'm just not sure he's as much of a lock in terms of he's going to be really good as the other 3 guys are a little bit earlier in the draft. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical, but I think it's a solid pick. He's going to start from day 1 at left tackle, but does need some work coming from a little bit of a smaller school. Kenny Pickett, I'm going to give a B. I think Kenny Pickett was at one time my number 1 quarterback in the draft. He's very accurate. He's a smart kid. He's a good leader. He's played a lot of games in college. He's going to transfer to the NFL smoothly. He ran a pro system, accurate. I think he's a deceptive athlete, deceptive feet. He's actually got deceptive scrambling ability and extension in terms of extending plays. And that's where I think people misevaluated him and under-evaluated him, so to speak, because I think a lot of people look at him as unathletic on the surface, but he is actually kind of athletic. His problems are his hand size in the cold. I do question that, and precipitation in Pittsburgh, but then again, he played in Pittsburgh, so how much of it was really a problem? And then on top of that, arm strength, it's not superb. But if he can continue to improve as a thinker of the position and can continue to improve in terms of his playmaking abilities and his pocket presence, he could be a really good quarterback in this league and possibly a top 12 guy, but I see him probably more being in the range of 12 to 20 throughout his course of his career. So you're getting pretty much like a solid quarterback in the middle of round 1, which is not bad at all. You know, if he was a top 10 pick, that's a little bit more questionable, but here it's solid value to get a Kenny Pickett, especially for a team like Pittsburgh, who is still sort of in the win now window, is still looking to win, right? So it does make sense. Trent McDuffie is an A for me. He was my number 2 corner in the class, given Stingley's question marks in terms of his injuries. I think McDuffie is a great thinker of the corner position. He reacts to footballs very well. He's great in zone coverage, good ball skills. He's got versatility to play inside or outside. I think he could play inside, but Trent McDuffie, I just really like him. He's just a really good football player. He's tough. He's a playmaker. I love everything about him, so I give it an A, and also pretty good value. I thought he was a top 15 guy in this class. Quay Walker, C+. I like Quay Walker. I like the player. I thought he was my number 2 linebacker, but again, you picked him number 1 in the class. He does have a lot of upside. He's 6'4". He's got great movement ability. In terms of his hips are very smooth. I think he's got a lot of length to break up passes. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Tremaine Edmonds from the Buffalo Bills or a Jamie Collins of the Patriots. But you've got to use him correctly. You've got to be able to move him around and use him right. But I will say this, the Packers had a lot of success with Devondre Campbell, who's a similar looking athlete. You know, Campbell's a little bit bigger, but Walker's a little bit faster and more explosive. So that's the type of linebacker they're looking for to impact the passing and run game. And maybe they're looking at losing to the 49ers a couple of times and saying, we need more help at linebacker. So I kind of get it, but it's not a home run pick. I also felt like wide receiver was a bigger need here for the Packers in round 1, and they failed to get one. Kaiir Elam is a B for me. I think he's a solid corner pick. I prefer Andrew Booth. I understand he fell to day 2 because of the concerns about the surgery, but Elam's a solid player. I saw a lot of promise in terms of his coverage ability, his one-on-one ability, his shutdown ability at Florida, but I do also see the concerns when it comes to aggression when he's not covering somebody. He's very physical and aggressive in coverage, but he's lacking some sort of heart when it comes to tackling and being aggressive in that regard. So there were things I really liked, things I didn't like. He fits the prototypical size and stature of a Bills corner on the perimeter, and he's going to upgrade the secondary, you know, a unit that you need to have, a very good unit when you enter the AFC playoffs, given that you got to play Herbert, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, all these guys, right? So Kaiir Elam makes sense as their number 2 corner. Moving forward, Tyler Smith is going to be a B- for me. You know, it's in terms of a need, it's an A. But in terms of the player, I am skeptical about how good he's going to be. I feel like he's a really promising run blocker. He's got an attitude. He's got an aggression. PFF, you know, they graded him as the best run blocker in college football last year. So a lot of promise there. But in terms of his pass blocking, very raw and very unknown. So if they can coach him up in that regard, this could be a very good pick. He played tackle, but he maybe plays guard in the NFL. So I'm kind of questioning how they see that fit. But either way, he's going to start from day 1 for the Cowboys, and they really need offensive linemen. So I think it's a solid pick. It's just not my favorite. I also feel like, you know, the value too at the end of round 1, I know some people were kind of saying, was he really a first round pick? Yeah, he was a late first round, early second round type guy. So I don't hate it. I don't love it. You know, I'm somewhere in the middle, but he could end up being a good player for Dallas. Dallas has done a very good job drafting linemen in the last decade. Tyler Linderbaum to the Ravens, I think, is an extraordinary pick. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum's an absolute monster. He's a top 10 prospect in this class. He's the best center in the draft. He's one of the best centers I've ever seen on tape. He's a great mover in terms of his feet are amazing. And for his size, he's very, very strong. I was a little bit surprised by this pick, to be honest with you, especially because of the trade that went down with Marquise Brown, which I thought was a good trade for you guys, by the way. But I think Tyler Linderbaum is just a really good player, and I think that's what the Ravens are going for here. The reason I give it an A-, not like an A or A+, is just because I thought the need was a slightly surprising one. I thought they might go with D-line or corner or like nickel corner or pass rusher here with like George Karlaftis on the board, maybe even linebacker with like Devin Lloyd still there, but they end up going, and Jermaine Johnson was still there. So I was a little bit surprised that Tyler Linderbaum was the pick here, but hey, you're a run-heavy team. He's an extraordinary run blocker, so I get it. I get it. He's the best center in the draft. It's kind of like pick your poison here with what you would have rather done, but it's a good player, so I can't blame them. Jermaine Johnson is an A+ for me for the Jets. There was talk that Jermaine Johnson was going to go number 4 to the Jets. Ultimately, he goes to the Jets way later in the draft. I was shocked at his fall in this draft. I was hearing that he was a top 10 lock. I thought he was a top 10 lock. I thought he was the second best pass rusher in this class. This is probably the best value of round 1 in terms of prototypical value of what people thought was going to happen versus what actually happened. Jermaine Johnson is a stud, man. He's got great strength. He's a beast versus the run. He's got an attitude that I love. He's going to set the tone for the Jets. The Jets got an attitude guy in Johnson and a swagger guy in Sauce. I mean, Johnson is a beast. I think he's got a lot of upside in terms of his actual bend off the edge that I don't think a guy like Kayvon Thibodeaux actually possesses. So Jermaine Johnson, it fits the scheme well. I mean, everything about this pick is extraordinary. Devin Lloyd to Jacksonville is an A. Solid A, best linebacker in the draft in my opinion. Great movement skills, very good coverage ability, also the ability to rush the passer, the ability to stop the run. I do question maybe his ability versus the run in terms of processing and seeing things all the time, but Devin Lloyd is my favorite linebacker in this class. I wanted my team to pick him, and they traded back, so Jacksonville ended up landing him. I think this was a good pick. And it was a position of need. Maybe not the biggest position of need. They could have went with offensive line. They could have went with wide receiver. They could have went with safety. But they went with linebacker. I can't blame it. It was a position of need. Plus, their new defensive coordinator comes from Tampa Bay. Has a pretty good idea of what linebackers are good and what linebackers are not. So, I understand it. Devontae Wyatt is a B for me. Really like the player. I question the fit a little bit. And I also question, why not receiver? Trying to get a receiver. But the Packers beef up their defense with Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, both from Georgia. Devontae Wyatt, great hands. I think he's the best pass rushing interior defensive lineman in this class. And for that, I give it a solid B. I do like that they're pairing up him with Kenny Clark here, and that's going to give them a very interesting and promising pass rush. I also like that Devontae Wyatt's going to impact a guy like Tom Brady when they see them in the playoffs, or even somebody like Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, the pocket passers that they will play. Devontae Wyatt will have an impact in those games. Now is the worst pick of the first round. It's got to be Cole Strange to the Patriots. Not exactly because of the player. I think the player is actually a pretty safe pick. I think Cole Strange is going to be a good player in the NFL, but I thought he was going to go in the second or the third round. And a lot of times we do get misconstrued with like, does the value really matter? But it kind of does, right? Because, you see Sean McVay and Les Snead, Super Bowl champs here. Super Bowl champs right now. So their thought means more than anybody's right now. It's just the way it is, right? So they laugh at that pick. They thought he was going to be picked in the third round. So just the fact that they thought that means that probably other teams thought that as well. And Cole Strange's a good player. He showed out at the Senior Bowl. He was dominant on tape versus his competition. And he's going to start from day one at a position of need. But there's a couple problems here, right? He's not a big position. The Patriots are not the 2007 Patriots. They don't have like every position filled up on the depth chart. They need corners. They need pass rushers. They could use linebackers. They could use receivers, right? Guard is a luxury position in my opinion. It's not a must position in the NFL today. I'd rather have a receiver. I'd rather have a corner. I'd rather have a pass rusher. And just the fact that you get a guard here, it just doesn't move the dial for me. Look at the team that went to the Super Bowl, the Bengals. Who are their guards? So, I mean, Cole Strange could be a good player. He might be the next Logan Mankins. But the value was bad. They could have had him in the second round. I mean, they probably could have picked him 55th overall. I wouldn't have, But then again, I thought they got good value on the trade. They got a third and a fourth round pick in the trade back. So I think that's solid. Hopefully they can add in the third and fourth round as well. Then we've got George Karlaftis, who is an A for me. George Karlaftis is a good football player. Point blank, period. Fits a need for the Chiefs. Maybe not the most bendy, pure pass rusher that they could have went with here, but great hand usage, very physical in the run game, sets the edge well, super strong in the top half, is going to be a good pass rusher, and they seem to like those power pass rushers. So George Karlaftis fits Steve Spagnuolo's defense and fits a need for the Chiefs at the pass rush spot. At number 31, Daxton Hill. Daxton Hill is a B+ for me. Daxton Hill is just a really good football player. I mean, I love Daxton Hill. He's so versatile. He can play nickel. He can play free. He can play strong. He might even be able to play perimeter corner. I love him so much. So Daxton Hill is a leader. He's a playmaker. He's a great coverage guy. A great combination of speed and length. Now, I will say this. Where's he going to play for the Bengals? Because they got Mike Hilton at nickel. They got Von Bell and Jesse Bates at free safety and strong safety. So is he going to play perimeter corner? I doubt it. Maybe is he the solution for losing Jesse Bates? Maybe. Or are they just going to be tricky with how they align him? That's something that I don't really know. So that's kind of hurt the grade a little bit. And Lewis Cine is the final pick of the first round to the Minnesota Vikings from Georgia. Leader, national champ. Flies around the football field. Great playmaker. Really fun guy to watch. Reminds me of Antoine Winfield Jr. I've said this many times. But he's going to have that impact on this defense. You're going to see him everywhere. He causes havoc. He's reckless abandon. He's going to be everywhere for this defense. He's going to take, a little bit of stress off of Harrison Smith. And he's going to be a guy that has incredible range. I think he's going to be your free safety this year, and he's going to start right away, and he's going to make plays. So, Lewis Cine is the final pick of the first round. And those are my first round grades for the 2022 NFL Draft. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button, and we'll see you in the next video. I am going to be covering my favorite picks of the second and the third round, day 2 of the NFL Draft tomorrow, so make sure you check that out. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.